The courtroom was already tense when the billionaire's son laughed at the girl in the second row. But the moment he said Taylor Swift's name, the entire room changed temperature. A reporter looked up so fast her pen rolled off the bench. A bailiff stopped mid-step. Even the fluorescent lights seemed harsher, colder, exposing every face, every twitch, every crack in the performance. And on the bench, Judge Elena Marlowe, calm, silver-haired, famous for cutting through lies like glass, lifted her eyes with the kind of stillness that makes guilty people forget how to breathe. Because that was the instant everyone understood this was no longer a petty civil dispute over property damage and disruptive conduct. This was about power, about humiliation, about a man who had spent his life confusing influence with immunity. And if you've ever wanted to see the exact second arrogance walks straight into justice and doesn't realize the door has already locked behind it, stay with this one, like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments whether you think some people only understand truth when it is spoken from a bench they cannot buy. The plaintiff was Carter Voss, 28, heir to a chain of luxury hotels, standing in a navy suit so expensive it looked poured onto him. His jaw was clean and sharp, his blonde hair swept back with careless precision, his cufflinks reflecting the courtroom lights every time he moved his hands in those smug little gestures that told the world he was used to interrupting people. He stood like a man attending an inconvenience, not a hearing, like rules were something ordinary people sat beneath while he floated above them. His lawyer kept leaning toward him, whispering caution, but Carter wore that same infuriating half-smile men wear when they've never been meaningfully corrected. At the defense table sat Maya Delgado, 22 years old, a music student and part-time rideshare driver who looked like she had barely slept in a week. Her dark blazer was clean but fraying at one cuff. Her fingers stayed laced tightly in her lap, knuckles pale, as if she were physically holding herself together. She was not polished, she was not powerful, but she had that unmistakable dignity that cannot be styled or purchased. It lived in the straightness of her back, the restraint in her voice, the way she did not once look away when Carter smirked at her. Her mother sat behind her, clutching a tissue. Her younger brother, still in a grocery store uniform from the morning shift, stared at the floor every time Carter's name was spoken. On paper, the case seemed almost laughably small. Carter alleged that Maya had vandalized his vintage Aston Martin outside an upscale restaurant after aggressively approaching him for a photograph. He claimed she had screamed at him when he refused, keyed the side of his car, and then created a social media lie to extort money and attention. He wanted damages. He wanted legal fees. Mostly, it seemed, he wanted a public lesson delivered to someone he believed should have stayed beneath him. Maya said none of it was true. She had been parked legally across the street waiting to pick up a passenger after a conservatory rehearsal. Carter and his friends stumbled out of the restaurant just after midnight, loud, laughing, red-faced from wine and entitlement. One of them recognized a song sticker on Maya's guitar case and made a joke about discount Taylor Swift. Carter leaned into the open passenger side window of her car, saw the bracelet stack on her wrist, and asked if she was another crying fangirl. Maya said she told him to move away from the vehicle. She said he reached in, grabbed one of the friendship bracelets her little sister had made her before she died of leukemia, and snapped it in his hand while his friends laughed. When she got out of the car and demanded it back, he tossed the broken beads onto the pavement and told her to pick up your little heartbreak jewelry and go write a song about it. There were murmurs at that. A few people in the gallery recoiled. Carter rolled his eyes as if he were bored by grief itself. "Your Honor, are we seriously doing this? She's dramatizing a bracelet." Judge Marlowe looked at him over the rim of her glasses. "Mr. Voss, in this courtroom, what another person loves is not yours to trivialize." The first shift in the room was subtle, but it was there. Carter's attorney leaned on the alleged car scratch. He presented photographs of a thin white line on the driver's side door. He produced a valet attendant who claimed he saw Maya near the vehicle, acting agitated. He displayed Maya's social media post from that night, a blurry picture of broken beads in her palm with the caption, "Some people are exactly as empty as they look." He painted her as a desperate young woman chasing a viral moment through a rich target. Then Carter made the mistake that opened the floor beneath him. He laughed again, this time louder. "She only posted because she thought Taylor Swift fans would come rescue her. That crowd treats bracelets like holy relics. A few nervous chuckles died instantly. Judge Marlowe's expression changed by less than an inch, but everyone saw it. "Say that again," she said. Carter blinked, suddenly unsure. "I said she was trying to weaponize celebrity culture." "No," the judge said softly. "The part before that." He hesitated. "That Taylor Swift fans treat bracelets like holy relics." Judge Marlowe folded her hands. "Interesting choice of contempt, considering the evidence just submitted." That's when everything changed. Because tucked inside the defense exhibits, almost overlooked until that moment, was a small sealed envelope. Maya's attorney, a legal aid lawyer with tired eyes and a voice steadier than steel, asked permission to approach. Inside the envelope was a letter, printed on cream stationery, creased from being opened and reread so many times the folds were soft. It had been sent months earlier through a hospital music outreach program. Maya, who volunteered there after losing her sister Sophia, had once played guitar for children in oncology. One of those visits had led to a fan project that reached a publicist, then an artist liaison, then finally Taylor Swift's team. The letter thanked Maya and Sophia for the bracelets they had made for kids undergoing treatment and included a handwritten note in blue ink. For Sophia, music remembers what pain tries to erase. Keep making things that survive the hard days. The courtroom went silent. Maya's hand trembled as the letter was passed up. Her mother pressed both hands to her mouth. Even the stenographer looked shaken. Judge Marlowe read the note once, then again. When she spoke, her voice was even, but there was a blade hidden inside it. "So the bracelet you mocked was made by a dying child, and the item you call a prop was connected to a bereavement keepsake, a hospital charity project, and a letter of personal encouragement tied to that child's memory." Carter shifted. "I didn't know any of that." Maya finally looked directly at him. There was no pleading in her face now, only hurt transformed into strength. "I told you that night," she said. "I said, please don't break that. My sister made it before she died. You laughed and said everybody has a dead relative story when they want attention." The gasps this time were not subtle. They tore across the gallery in a wave. Carter's lawyer rose immediately objecting, but Judge Marlowe was already asking for the valet's written statement again. Something had bothered her, something in the timing, something in the language. She questioned him herself, calm, precise, devastating. Within 3 minutes, the witness began to sweat. Within 5, he admitted he had not actually seen Maya key the car. He had seen her standing near it after the confrontation, crying and picking beads off the sidewalk. Carter's security detail had approached him the next afternoon. They had helped refresh his memory. The courtroom shifted again, harder this time. And then came the CCTV footage. The restaurant's exterior camera had been difficult to obtain because, according to Carter's team, it had been accidentally overwritten. But Maya's attorney had subpoenaed a neighboring boutique's backup feed. Grainy, angled, imperfect, and absolutely fatal. It showed Carter leaning into Maya's car, laughing with his friends, snapping something from her wrist. It showed beads scattering under the street lamp like tiny drops of light. It showed Maya getting out, pleading, crouching to gather them. It showed Carter turning, distracted, and dragging his own signet ring down the side of the Aston Martin door as he swung his arm too wide to point at her. For one breathtaking second, nobody moved. Dead, silent courtroom. Then there it was on the screen again, undeniable, merciless. Carter had made the scratch himself. His face drained all at once. The arrogance didn't disappear cleanly. It cracked. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. His lawyer stopped touching his arm. The distance between them widened by inches that felt like miles. And because men like Carter Voss always mistake collapse for one final chance to dominate, he said the worst thing he could possibly say. "Oh, come on," he snapped, voice sharp with panic. "We're blowing up a scratch and some little Swift trinket because a sad girl figured out how to cry on cue. This is exactly why people like her stay broke. They turn every slight into a performance." The room recoiled. Someone whispered, "My God." Maya's brother stood halfway up before his mother gripped his sleeve and pulled him down. Judge Marlowe did not raise her voice. She never needed to. "Mr. Voss," she said, "you have confused privilege with proof for so long that you no longer hear yourself when the truth walks out of your mouth." That line would be clipped, reposted, repeated everywhere before sunset. But what happened next was why it went viral. Judge Marlowe leaned forward into the silence, and the courtroom seemed to bend toward her. She spoke first of the law, false claims, witness tampering, frivolous litigation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Then she spoke of something larger, something colder and more final. She said this case began as a dispute over a car door and revealed itself as an anatomy of contempt. She said Carter Voss had not simply lied, he had selected his target with precision. He saw a young woman alone at night, working class, grieving, visibly vulnerable, and decided she would be easy to erase. He believed money could hire memory. He believed status could bleach cruelty into misunderstanding. He believed a courtroom would instinctively trust the man with the watch over the woman with the worn cuff. Her eyes never left him. "You brought this case expecting the law to function as your private publicist," she said. "You wanted the court to stamp your version of events with official approval and call it truth. But the law is not a concierge service for the arrogant. It is one of the last places in this country where a person with nothing but facts may still stand taller than a person with everything but character." Carter looked down, then up, then down again. He was shrinking in real time. Judge Marlowe continued, each word landing with terrible precision. "You mocked a dead child's bracelet. You insulted grief. You manipulated a witness. You filed a claim you knew was false. And when confronted, you reached for the oldest refuge of the morally bankrupt, contempt for the vulnerable. Let me be clear, this court does not punish you because you are wealthy. It punishes you because you tried to use wealth as a weapon and called it innocence." The courtroom went silent once more, but this time the silence felt righteous. She dismissed Carter's claims with prejudice. She referred the matter for prosecutorial review over perjury and witness interference. She ordered him to pay Maya's legal costs, lost wages, counseling expenses, and substantial damages for emotional distress. Then, after a pause so long it nearly hurt, she added one final sentence that snapped through the room like thunder. "Mr. Voss, the scratch on your car will buff out. The stain on your name will not." There were no smiles on the bench, no theatrics, just the clean force of consequence. Carter did not leave like a prince. He left like a man learning, far too late, that public humiliation feels different when it is deserved. His shoulders collapsed inward. His expensive shoes made a hollow sound on the courtroom floor. Cameras caught him outside trying to hide his face, while the very footage he tried to bury spread across every screen in the city. Maya stayed seated for a moment after it was over, as if her body did not yet trust what had happened. Then her mother wrapped both arms around her, and for the first time all morning Maya cried without trying to stop herself. Not the helpless crying Carter had counted on. Not the crying of someone being crushed. The crying that comes when truth survives. In the weeks that followed, the fallout widened. Carter lost 2 board appointments. A valet and security supervisor gave statements. Other women came forward about similar intimidation, smaller lies, private humiliations that had never reached daylight because he had always chosen people he thought nobody would believe. A foundation quietly withdrew from a gala his family hosted, and Maya, who never asked for fame and never chased it, received thousands of letters from strangers and former hospital volunteers. A music program in Sophia's name was funded within a month. Children in treatment began wearing handmade bracelets stamped with tiny silver stars and the words "Survive the hard days." That was the real ending. Not just punishment, restoration, not just a man being brought low, but a memory being lifted back into dignity. So if this story stayed with you, if that moment when the judge turned a rich man's performance into a permanent lesson hit you in the chest, tell me in the comments which line you'll never forget. Like the video if you believe grief deserves respect and truth deserves a voice. Subscribe for more stories where power meets its limit, and share this with someone who needs to remember that sometimes justice does not arrive loudly at first. Sometimes it sits very still, waits for the lie to finish speaking, and then changes everything.